There is a deeply unsettling experience that often appears during the process of awakening, one that very few people speak about with raw, naked honesty. It is not hidden because it is rare. It is hidden because it feels almost inappropriate, even shameful to admit. At some point, as the light of consciousness begins to grow within you, you notice a shift that feels like a betrayal of everything you've been taught. You begin to notice that being around people has become difficult. Not just certain toxic people, not just the ones you already struggled with, but most people. Interactions that once felt like the natural, effortless fabric of your daily life now feel strangely, almost physically, exhausting. Conversations that once filled the silence now feel hollow, like the echo of wind in a vacant building. Social situations that you used to tolerate, or perhaps even enjoy through habit, now leave you irritated, drained, and possessed by an urgent primal need to retreat into total solitude. And this creates a profound, agonizing inner conflict, because everything you have been taught about spiritual awakening suggests the absolute opposite should be happening. You have been led to believe that greater awareness should make you more open, more patient, and more boundlessly compassionate. You imagine that spiritual growth should soften your edges, dissolve your irritations, and expand your capacity to embrace every human being exactly as they are. You expected to become a sanctuary of love, a person whose heart is so wide that it can absorb the chaos of others without a flicker of resentment. Yet, your lived experience tells a different story. Instead of feeling more connected, you feel a desperate urge to withdraw. Instead of feeling endlessly loving, you feel overwhelmed by the sheer density and noise of human interaction. Instead of moving toward the world with open arms, you find yourself seeking distance, seeking silence, seeking a stillness that the modern world seems designed to destroy. Naturally, this troubles you. You begin to turn the lens of your new awareness upon yourself, but you do so with a sharp, cold edge of judgment. You wonder, has something gone wrong? Is this irritation a sign of hidden arrogance? Am I falling into the trap of spiritual pride, secretly believing that I am somehow above the common human experience? You fear that perhaps you are becoming less human rather than more awake. You ask yourself the most uncomfortable question of all. If awakening is the realization of oneness, why do I feel so profoundly separate? After all, if awakening is real, shouldn't it make others easier to tolerate? Shouldn't it make you the most approachable person in the room? And yet, here you are, feeling exactly the opposite. What if I told you that this discomfort is not a failure of your awakening? What if this irritation is not a sign of your ego, but one of the most significant yet least discussed consequences of a true shift in consciousness? Before you reject your experience as a moral failing, you must understand the architecture of what has actually changed beneath the surface of your soul. You are not becoming less human. You are becoming less mechanical. And in a world that runs on psychological machinery, that transition is bound to create a friction that burns. To understand why people have become so draining, we must look at what your life was like before the veil began to thin. Before this shift began, life felt simpler because you moved through the world guided by shared assumptions and collective trance. You related to people through familiar, unconscious patterns that you never thought to question. You bonded over the common currency of human interaction, shared complaints about the government, mutual grievances about work, the weather, or the shortcomings of mutual acquaintances. You connected through the friction of ambitions, the drama of frustrations, and the small, temporary victories of the ego. Most human interaction is, in reality, a game of reinforcing identity. It is a constant, subtle negotiation. Who is winning? Who is struggling? Who is right? Who is wrong? Within this framework, social interaction feels natural because everyone is playing by the same unwritten rules. You performed your roles: the loyal friend, the ambitious colleague, the caring family member, and others performed theirs in return. There was an unspoken agreement about what deserved emotional investment. Because you were operating from the same psychological frequency as those around you, there was no friction. You may not have been deeply fulfilled, but you felt included. You belonged to the same reality as everyone else. But awakening is not an addition to this world. It is a systematic removal of illusions. It is a stripping away of the filters that once made the mundane seem meaningful. Once that removal begins, the world you once called home starts to feel like a foreign land where you no longer speak the language. Awakening changes your internal immune system. You start to see that much of what people call connection is actually mutual distraction. You see that many conversations are not an exchange of ideas, but a collision of monologues. Two people waiting for their turn to speak, seeking validation for a self-image that is fundamentally fragile. This is why you feel a wrongness in your interactions. You are being asked, subtly but constantly, to care about what you no longer care about. You are being asked to react where you no longer feel a reaction. You are expected to participate in concerns that you have already seen through. Imagine being a sober person in a room full of people who are deeply intoxicated. At first you might try to laugh at their jokes and follow their logic, but eventually the gap becomes too wide. The energy required to pretend to be at their level of intoxication becomes exhausting. This is what is happening to you. You are becoming sober in a world that is still very much drunk on the illusions of the ego. You find yourself in conversations where words continue to flow, but meaning does not. P. People speak with urgency about outcomes that feel strangely empty to you. They become emotionally invested in dramas that you can see are entirely self-created. This creates a quiet, persistent strain on your nervous system. You are trying to meet people in a psychological space that you no longer inhabit. This exhaustion is not a sign that you are judgmental. It is a sign that you are no longer operating on automatic social scripts. You have become aware of the price of interaction, and your soul is telling you that the price has become too high. As the awakening deepens, another subtle but profound change takes place, one that is difficult to describe until it happens to you. You become acutely, almost painfully sensitive to presence. In your previous state of being, you rarely noticed whether someone was truly there or not. You didn't notice because you were often not present yourself. You lived, like most of humanity, in the fragmented corridors of thought, memory, and anticipation. But once you have tasted the stillness of real presence, once you have experienced the weight of the now, you begin to recognize its absence in others with chilling clarity. You start to notice that most human interactions are ghost-like. You may be sitting across from someone, watching their lips move and hearing their words, yet you sense that there is no one home. Their attention is scattered across a dozen different timelines. They are worrying about a meeting tomorrow, replaying a conflict from yesterday, or feeding a mental image of who they want you to think they are, because presence recognizes presence. When you are standing in the light of awareness and the person across from you is lost in the fog of their mind, the interaction feels one-sided and strangely lonely. It is like trying to satisfy a real physical hunger with a photograph of food. You can see the resemblance, but it offers no nourishment. This recognition changes the very quality of your attention. You are no longer fully absorbed in the surface of things. You see through the stories people tell themselves and each other. You notice how much of what is taken seriously is ultimately hollow, a performance rather than reality itself. This creates a strange distance. It is not an emotional coldness, but a quiet recognition that the world you once engaged with unquestioningly is not as solid as it seemed. And once that recognition sets in, you cannot return to the same level of involvement as before. The spell has been broken. You begin to realize that most people are not speaking to you. They are speaking to their idea of you, or worse, they are using you as a mirror to speak to themselves. They want confirmation, agreement, and emotional participation in their mental constructs. When you cannot provide this, because you are no longer a participant in the dream, the interaction becomes a source of immense fatigue. You leave these conversations feeling depleted, not energized. You feel a sense of having spent something precious, your attention, your presence, your inner stillness, without receiving anything real in return. This is why distance begins to feel necessary. It is not a rejection of the human being in front of you. It is a recognition of what is missing in the exchange. Along with this sensitivity to presence, you also begin to notice the unseen economics of human interaction. Before awakening, your attention moved outward without resistance. You entered other people's emotional worlds without realizing what you were giving up in the process. But awareness changes your internal boundaries. You start to feel when a conversation is not an exchange but a drain. You notice when someone is not speaking to connect, but to unload their internal chaos. You see when interact. Qian is driven not by curiosity but by a desperate need to relieve inner tension or seek validation for a wounded ego. You notice how often people use drama as a way of feeling alive. Because they lack an internal connection to the source of life, they must manufacture intensity through conflict, gossip, or crisis. And because you are now more aware, you can feel the pull. You sense when someone is trying to draw you into their anxiety, subtly asking you to carry the weight of their resentment or confusion. At this stage, energy is no longer a mystical concept, it is a lived experience. You feel the literal tightening of your nervous system and the fading of your clarity after certain encounters. This is where many people begin to use the word energy vampirism. But we must see it more clearly. It is not that people are intentionally evil or trying to hurt you. It is simply that they are operating from a state of profound lack, and they are unconsciously seeking to fill that lack through the attention of others. Once you become aware of this dynamic, you naturally begin to protect yourself. You pause before responding. You disengage sooner. You set boundaries, sometimes, without saying a single word. To others, this looks like coldness or withdrawal. To you, it feels like honesty. You are no longer willing to pay the unseen price of maintaining a false connection. This realization brings a subtle maturity. You learn that real compassion is not reactive. It does not rush to fix others, nor does it collapse into their emotional worlds just to prove that you care. You understand that if you abandon your own stability to join someone in their chaos, both of you are now lost. True compassion remains grounded. It knows when to engage, and more importantly, it knows when to step back. By maintaining your inner integrity, you are actually capable of offering so. Meeting genuinely helpful clarity, rather than simply reinforcing unconscious patterns through sympathy. Understanding this allows a great deal of guilt to fall away. You realize that withdrawing is not a failure of love. It is an act of self-preservation that ultimately benefits the collective consciousness. As you navigate this difficult transition, a final and most important layer of the process begins to stabilize. You start to see more clearly, not just the unconsciousness of others, but the remaining fragments of your own. You begin to notice that some of the irritation you felt toward people was not entirely about them. It was also about the parts of yourself that were still unraveling. It was the friction of your old habits, your residual egoic identities, and your own hidden fears of being alone or unseen by the tribe. With this recognition, something within you finally softens. The rigid need to protect yourself begins to transform into a quiet, immovable steadiness. You reach a stage where you no longer feel the need to judge others for being where they are. You realize that they are not wrong for being asleep. They are simply at a different stage of a very long journey. This realization brings a profound relief. You no longer feel obligated to meet them in the psychological space where you once lived. But you also no longer feel the need to push them away with anger. You develop a spiritual immunity. You find that you can eventually be in the presence of unconsciousness without being pulled into it. You can listen without absorbing. You can remain present without needing the other person to be present in the same way. This is not a tolerance born of effort or politeness. It is a stability born of being deeply grounded in your own center. From this place of internal silence, compassion becomes natural rather than forced. It no longer requires you to sacrifice your peace or pretend to be someone you are not. You offer what is genuine, attention when it is real, silence when it is wiser, and truth when it is welcomed. And naturally, as you change, your external world begins to rearrange itself to match your new frequency. Many connections will fall away completely, and that is okay. Some will transform into something unrecognizable but more honest. And a few, perhaps only 2 or 3, will deepen in ways you could not have imagined before. You find that quality has officially replaced quantity. Depth has replaced noise. Presence has replaced the exhausting need for performance. You begin to attract a new kind of relationship, connections based not on shared illusions or mutual ego reinforcement, but on a shared recognition of being. These are relationships where you can sit in silence for an hour and feel more heard than in 1,000 hours of chatter. These are connections where you don't have to explain your need for solitude, because they inhabit that same solitude themselves. You realize that one genuine connection, one meeting rooted in presence rather than pattern, is worth more than countless relationships built on unconscious habit. This understanding does not isolate you from life, it finally brings you home to it. So, if you have been in this phase where people felt draining, where solitude felt like the only sanctuary, and where your social life seemed to be crumbling, do not make yourself wrong. Do not listen to the voice of guilt that tells you that you are becoming less. You are not becoming less human, you are becoming more real. You are stripping away the performed self to find the essential self. This discomfort is the bridge between the world of masks and the world of truth. Cross it with courage, because on the other side of this isolation is a life that no longer requires you to hide to, pretend, or to drain yourself just to belong. You are finally finding where you truly belong, in the vast, quiet, and unbreakable reality of your own awakened heart.